Alright, now you'll notice on a plywood sometimes we have little stickers and things we have to get off, and this particular sheet of plywood came from Lowe's, and I can assure you I made that whole job look a lot easier than it was. This one has a couple little knots in it. This is the bad side of this plywood. We're mostly just going to face that toward the inside of the box. Now let me flip it over for you, and we'll look at the good side, which is pretty nice looking stuff. This is oak veneered plywood. They also sell maple plywood, which is good looking stuff. You just want something that lays real flat. You'll notice this has a little imperfection, grain imperfection over there, which I think tends to add a lot of character to it. Now what we're going to do is first we're going to make 3 rip cuts. And the idea is that we're going to rip this plywood the entire length for all 3 of these cuts. So first we set the fence at 17¼ inches, and we're just going to run that the whole length. Now I'm trying to get you familiar here with the idea of this layout, or should I say cutout drawing, and the cutting list. There's nothing that's particularly sacrosanct here. You could do this any number of ways, but this is just a way I recommend to do it. Our next cut's going to be 14 5/8. I've just found out that this works pretty good, and I even noticed that in making this video that I actually didn't really cut it out the way the layout drawing specifies it. So that just shows you that you don't have to do it any given way. Our last rip here, notice, is just barely cutting anything off of this piece, and that's quite by design, I can assure you. Now we're ready to cross cut those pieces. I've found that the first cut, it's good to just kind of make sure there's nothing sticking out on the end of that plywood. Sometimes the veneer itself sticks out a little bit more than it should. And what we're going to be making here are the tops, I should say the top, the bottom, and the 2 doors. Turns out they are 15 7/8 by 23 7/8. So we're making our 23 7/8 cross cuts right now. So if we take a look at our cutout drawing, you can see what we did is we just took that piece that we ripped at 15 7/8, and we're making 4 23 7/8 pieces out of it. That gets us 2 check marks up there on our cutout drawing. I'll show you the last piece just from the top. I'm looking down my helmet cam right now, and you'll notice that was very close to having enough, and that was because that piece of plywood was not actually 8 foot long. It was an 1/8 inch shy of 8 feet. So next, let's cut the next piece that we had ripped, which was the 14 5/8 piece. And what we're going to want to do here is cross cut 3 pieces at 17 inches long, and that will be our 2 ends and the center divider, or center partition. I actually tend to call it both of those things. So there's the pieces we're cutting out now. We get another check mark up on top. And of course, the reason I put those check mark places up there is because there are a lot of people who like to see things in a very step-by-step fashion, and it's an attempt at trying to do that. Now here's where I'm actually deviating a little bit from the layout drawing. I'm going to cut these 2 pieces out of the 14 5/8 strip. And these 2 pieces are actually the ends of the stand. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second when we get to that layout drawing. But first let me cut the end plates from the layout drawing. So I'm cutting the end plates, which gets us another check mark, but notice that I had also cut the stand ends, which were actually specified over there in the 17 1/4 area. Now the other thing we have to do to those end pieces is we do have to trim it down from 14 5/8 to 13 1/2 though. And when we're done with these, notice where they came from, where I showed you where the drawers go. We don't have to do it that way. You can get your drawer material from practically anywhere, and I'm just going to do a separate video on drawers anyway. Now the last piece, which was really the first piece we ripped, 17 1/4, what we're going to want to do here is we're going to just want to so let's cross cut just last piece, which is at 25 3/4 of an inch. This is actually the stand top. Now that's pretty much everything except for shelves for the drawers, if you choose to do your drawers that way. Some people use runners. I hope you notice that 1/16 of an inch, which is really clearance for the drawer. That just makes sure that the opening is a 1/16 wider than the drawer is wide. So we're cutting these at 4 3/4 plus a 1/16. Now we're going to have to cut the length as well down to 14 1/2. And I'm also going to make the main compartment shelf 14 1/2 as well. In fact, we'll do it 14 1/2 by 14 1/2. Now, depending on the plywood thickness, that can be a little bit too big. And it could be just a little bit too tight, so you might yet have to trim it just a little bit in order to get it fit. You can do that by either sanding or cutting. So that's your cutting.